Job, the man who lost everything and still won. There are stories that transcend time, tales so profound and powerful that they continue to touch the human soul, generation after generation. One of these stories is that of Job, a man who experienced the heights of prosperity and the depths of pain. A man who was tested beyond all human limits but who, despite the losses, the wounds, and the doubts, never lost his essence. Today I invite you to dive into the life of Job, a universal story of suffering, endurance, and redemption that reminds us that even in the darkest nights, there is a light that never goes out. Have you ever felt like life turned its back on you? That all your hard work, your kindness, everything you've built suddenly disappears? If you've ever faced loss, injustice, or trials that seem senseless, this story is for you. Job is a symbol of all of us when we face pain without explanation. And his life is proof that even the most broken soul can rise again. Who was Job? Job was a righteous, upright man, someone who lived justly, striving to do good. He wasn't perfect, but his heart was sincere, and his life was full of blessings. He was prosperous, respected, loved by his family and his community. He had land, livestock, wealth, but above all, he had peace. His story begins in abundance, like so many lives that flourish without imagining that, one day, everything can change. It's said that Job had 7 sons and 3 daughters, and he constantly worried about them, offering sacrifices on their behalf, seeking complete well-being for his family, both materially and spiritually. He wasn't just living well, he was thinking of others' well-being. And that's why, for many, his downfall was even more incomprehensible. The beginning of the test. But one day, in the silence of the cosmos, a conversation unfolds that would mark his destiny. The story tells us how the adversary, the accuser, questions Job's integrity. Does Job fear God for nothing? The adversary says, "You've placed a hedge around him, you've blessed everything he has. But take it all away, and you'll see if he doesn't curse you to your face." And so the great test begins. Not because Job deserved it, but because his life becomes the stage for a larger lesson, one that touches the mystery of human suffering. What follows is a succession of tragedies that seem impossible to endure. In a single day, Job receives devastating news. His servants are killed, his livestock stolen, his lands destroyed. But the worst is yet to come. A powerful wind knocks down the house where his children are, and all of them die. Job, who woke up as the most fortunate man, ends the day in absolute ruin, with a broken heart, not understanding why. The endurance of the spirit here is where Job shows the greatness of his soul. He falls to the ground, tears his garments, and says one of the most powerful phrases ever spoken: "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." There is no rebellion in his words, only acceptance. Not because it doesn't hurt, but because he understands that life, in its mystery, has moments we cannot control. But the story doesn't end there. The test deepens. His body is covered with sores from head to toe. His health collapses, and those who knew him now look at him with pity or disdain. He sits in ashes, scratching himself with a piece of pottery, while his wife, unable to bear the pain, tells him, "Do you still maintain your integrity? Curse God and die." But Job responds, "Shall we accept good from God, and not trouble?" And so, in the midst of extreme suffering, Job maintains his dignity. He doesn't understand, but he doesn't rebel. He doesn't see the purpose, but he doesn't give up. And that is the deepest message. There are moments in life when we have no immediate answers, but that doesn't mean there's no meaning. Sometimes, the most valuable thing is simply to endure. Friends and misunderstanding. The story tells us how 3 friends come to comfort him. But what begins as companionship soon turns into accusation. They look at him, unable to believe that someone good could suffer so much. And then, as we humans often do, they search for easy explanations. They tell him he must have sinned, that he must have done something wrong, that God is punishing him. Job defends himself. Not with pride, but with truth. "I'm not perfect," he says, "but I've done nothing to deserve this." And so unfolds a long, intense dialogue where Job cries out for justice, for answers. He doesn't deny God, But he wonders, why me? Who hasn't asked that question? Job represents all who suffer without explanation. Those who have lost without reason. Those who strive to do good and still face darkness. But he also represents hope. Because although his faith wavers, it never breaks. The encounter with the divine finally, after so much pain, after so many words and tears, God responds. Not with explanations, but with presence. He shows Job the immensity of the universe, the mystery of creation, the depth of life. He says, "Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Have you ever given orders to the morning? Do you understand the workings of the cosmos?" It's not a logical answer, it's an invitation to trust. To understand that there are things greater than ourselves, that suffering doesn't always have an immediate cause, but it is never in vain. Job understands. Not everything, but enough. And he says, "My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you." In the midst of pain, Job finds a greater truth, that life has purpose, even when we don't see it. Restoration, and then comes the restoration. Not because Job demanded it, but because his faith was stronger than the test. God gives him back double of what he had. His wealth increases, his family grows, his health returns. He lives many more years, in peace, with the wisdom that only comes after walking through fire. But the most important thing is not what he receives, but what he becomes. Job is no longer just a righteous man. He is a witness that the human soul can endure any storm, and come out stronger. He is proof that faith, hope, and patience are more powerful than any adversity. A universal story. Job's story is not just a religious one. It is a song to life, a mirror where we can all see ourselves. Because we've all suffered, we've all lost, we've all doubted. But we also all have within us the strength to keep going, to trust, to hope. Job teaches us that we are not alone, that even in the darkest night, there is a light. That pain is not eternal, and hope can be reborn. That life, with everything it brings, is a journey worth taking. If you feel like Job today, if you're in the dust, in loss, in misunderstanding, remember his story. Not everything is lost. What seems like your end today could be the beginning of a new life, deeper, more real. Job's story is your story. And it can be your victory too. If this story touched your heart, I invite you to subscribe to our channel. Here we share inspiring stories, messages of hope, and reflections that will accompany you through every stage of your journey. Subscribe and join this community of souls seeking light, strength, and meaning.